Hey guys, welcome back to the CORSAIR live stream. We're here today to talk about the 5000 series case and some cool other PC stuff we have going on. Our co-host, as always, Kevin Galloway. Kevin, you want to say hi to everybody?
How's it going, everyone? Nice to see you again. Really excited about today's show.
All right, and our special guest from Hardware Canucks, Dmitry.
Oh, thanks, guys. Really appreciate you inviting me on. This is my second stream, my second big stream of my streaming career or streaming appearances.
So you're an expert now, yeah?
Yeah, very, very expert. Very much.
And another Kevin W., who's the head of Origin and founder of Origin PC. Kevin?
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for having me on. What's up to everybody in the chat? Yes, I'm Kevin Wasilewski, one of Origin PC's co-founders and currently Corsair's Senior Director of DIY. So great to be here.
I think that's the first time I've actually heard your last name, Kevin, said. I've only
how do you pronounce that? Wasilewski?
Wasilewski, yes.
Wasilewski.
Oh,
okay.
Now we're experts.
Just
AKA
like
Washajetski, some people say.
Washajetski.
That's an easy way to remember.
That's easier to remember. All right. Now that we've already offended half the Polish population of the viewership, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about, the 5000D. Before we start talking about it, though, I want to show off the cool video we have. So let's roll the case footage and show everybody what we're talking about. That was an incredible video that our 3D guys put together, so I think it's pretty cool. Looks great. So let's talk real quick. This is the 5000D. This is a custom build by one of our guys, Hans Petersal, and I can't pronounce his last name. It's Danish. But he's in Denmark, where they keep the Danish people. This has a custom distribution plate, so that's not part of the actual case that comes with it, but he did make this. It is something you can do yourself if you want to. This is chock full of HydroX components, which is really the point of 5000D is basically, and 5000X, which is if you like, custom water cooling and you love the 4000 series case, but you wanted a little bit more room, the 5000 series kind of solves that problem for you. Gives you a little bit more room for radiator space, a little bit more room for reservoirs and pumps. You can do a dual loop like this one in here with 2 of the XE5s in it, and set up everything else you can do. So we'll go through the features a little bit, but before we go into too much, Dmitry, you have one sitting behind you as well. I know you haven't had it for very long. What are your thoughts on it so far?
Well, I love the 4000D. That's like the case that I'm actually rocking right now for my own editing system. And that's like my perfect size enclosure. But I understand that people want something slightly bigger for more radiator space, for just a little bit more space to work in, a bit more breathing room. So what you guys did with the 5000D here is totally like, approved, let's say, by the Hardware Canucks team. Love what you guys carried over in terms of the design. This white on gray, beautiful. Love what you guys did there. I mean, the yellow, the Corsair yellow is still questionable, but I won't go there. And as you can see, I have my good old Fred that's sitting on the case, and that's Fred approved. So for radiator stuff, you guys have gone ahead with like the 360 and the like all around. So just as a slightly larger 4000D, good stuff.
Yeah. So speaking of radiators, I know it's kind of early. Like, can we get into our first trivia question here?
Jeez,
is
we have been here for
Well,
5
I'm really
minutes.
excited to give stuff away. I really,
Oh yeah. So hey, we are giving stuff away. That's a good point, Kevin. Why
Yeah.
don't you tell people what they can win?
Okay. So you can win a 5,000D case or something else that is yet to be.
Elite Capellix. So we launched Elite Capellix all-in-one coolers in September, and a lot of people asked, "Hey, those look great. Those are awesome, but I would really like a white one, because I really like the H100i Platinum SE that you guys did." So today we also announced it get a little bit overshadowed by 5000D, which is amazing, but we did also announce the H100i and H150i Capellix Elite Capellix coolers in white. So they're not in this build. This is a Hydro X build, but they have white fans, white radiator, white pump cap, white tubing, and everything. And those are available on the website as well. So you can get either a 240 or a 360 size. So if you want a white all-in-one cooler, you can win one on this call.
To recap on this call, from last month's stream, so some of the coolest features about the Elite Capellix is the replaceable cap, and we actually offer 3D printing files that you can customize your own and 3D print it yourself. So, but without going too much into the weeds, so yeah, we're giving away some 5,000 cases, 5,000 series cases, as well as Elite Capellix White. So first question, how many 360 radiator locations or radiators can you fit in the 5,000 series?
Dang, that's a tough one for the chat. That's
a
brand
tough one
new
for the
chassis.
chat.
Like,
It
boom,
was
here
just
it is.
if you weren't watching the video and memorizing it and taking notes, you might not know.
They can just go back slightly. And
Can't make it too easy.
Yeah. So there's two different questions, Kevin. So let's clarify which question we're asking. One is, how many mount locations are there in the case? And the other is, how many can you fit simultaneously? Because the answer is slightly different.
Right,
so
right.
Which question are you actually asking the chat? Because I see the right answer for both of those questions.
Let's go with the locations. Let's just talk about locations, because building, that's a little bit different. People haven't had their hands on it and everything. So
someone said 11. That may be true if you don't screw them in. If you just kind of shove them in there, you might be able to do that. 11
I
is
saw 287. So that's
287. 287 is actually how I get to work sometimes. A little freeway. There you go. But no. The correct answer is there are 3 separate mount locations. You have the 3 in the front, or the 3 fan location in the front. So you have a 360 up front, 360 on top, and then that side panel, the motherboard panel, 360 mount location as well. Because of the way this case is designed, you can only use 2 of those simultaneously. You pick which 2 you want. I prefer to use the side panel in the top. Some people might prefer to use the kind of side panel in the front, or the front and the top, whatever. But usually you can only fit 2 radiators and fans in at the same time. So there are 3 separate mount locations. So the first person in the chat who said 3 is correct. Congratulations.
And yeah, we'll be reaching out to you and getting some information, not for nefarious reasons, but to send you your new prize.
We're going to find out your information, and at 4 in the morning, we're going to bust down your door and throw the case at you.
We will find you and give you a 5,000D.
We're going to have Liam Neeson menacingly deliver it.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Ristel Quinn wins the first trivia question. So I hope
nice.
Congrats.
Correctly. Congrats to Ristel Quinn. Okay, so let's bring up the page for the 5000D so I can go over some cool features real quick. If you want to bring it up a sec, Alan. So this is the 5000D Airflow. Like the 4000 series, the 5000 series comes in both black and white, and it comes in 3 models. There's the D Airflow, and the X RGB. The D and the D Airflow are exactly the same, except for the front and top panels that come included on the case. So the D Airflow, which is what we're looking at here, has mesh front with the new triangle pattern, and a mesh front top on as well, so you can get the air in and out of the case. The standard D just has a blank slab of steel on front and top, so the air is all the way coming from the surrounds, which is still good airflow, but the airflow has a little bit higher. And then the X has tempered glass on the front, the top, and both side panels. So on the X RGB case, there are 4 separate tempered glass panels, including the rear motherboard panel that was in there. So you can go through this. You can see internally there's all that space we talked about. This is kind of showing where you can fit the radiators and how you can set it up. Then we have kind of the air guide fan technology, which is something that we launched on the 4000 series initially, but both comes with 5000 series as well. All these air guide fans have what we call stator vanes on the back of the fan blades, so that it counteracts the turbine effect. So normally when you have fans blowing, you see the air kind of just goes out wide in a big kind of W shape. By counteracting that turbine effect, by having those stator vanes kind of turn this turbine effect and reduce it a little bit, you get that airflow more directed. So it's a narrower cone, and it pushes air right across the hotter component. So you can see in this kind of animation here that a single 120 millimeter front fan that comes with the D and the D airflow will push the air more cleanly across your graphics card and your CPU area than a standard kind of fan would. So you'll see that. And then obviously they have a PWM fan header in there, which is something that all these cases have. So if you don't have a fan controller like the Commander Pro or something like that, you can just plug in the PWM header on your motherboard to the PWM splitter, and it will let you adjust 6 different fans in the case from one header on your motherboard. So you can change this fan speed in your motherboard BIOS. So if it's or your motherboard software. So if you did let's say I had a motherboard software from Asus or Gigabyte or MSI, and you want to just go in there and change the fan speed off that one fan header, it would control up to 6. It'll split that out. And
right, so it'll just use the fan control through the motherboard, and so you don't have to use external software or anything like that. And it'll just apply that same curve to all the fans. So it's really cool. It's a powered, I believe it's a powered repeater, correct?
Yeah. And then inside the case, there are like 10 different 120 millimeter mount locations. So you have 3 in front, 3 on that side panel, 3 on top, and then 1 in the rear. And for 140s, you can have the 2 top and 2 front. So if you like 140s, that's that. And then like radiators, like we were saying, 360 front, 360 side, 360 top, and you could put a 120 in the rear if you really felt like using every available spot. SSD spots, you got 4 of them there, and 2 mechanical hard drive spots. All of those are removable. So if you don't want your mechanical hard drive spot in there and you want more room for cable routing, you just take that thing out and throw it in a drawer or wherever. And they all have the cable routing set up, the rapid route that we did with 4000 series. This one's even a little bit better than the 4000 series. It's a bigger case, so we have a little bit more room for the cable routing there. And then here you can see that set up with the cable routing. This is what the top panel and the D airflow looks like. It looks like the front panel again with the dual USB 2.0 ports, or 3.0 ports rather, sorry, and a USB 3.1 port. So that's
I know a lot of people will appreciate the USB-C on the I/O there. Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to charge your phone or something now. Every phone seems to come with a USB-C charger, so
exactly,
it's pretty nice. And then obviously we have vertical GPU mount as well. You do have to get the PCI Express extension cable. We have a PCI Express 3.0 extension cable on our site. If you need a 4.0 cable, you got to find one. We don't have one of those yet, just as an FYI. But then that's the 5000D. The good news about the 5000D is if you don't want to build your own, you can go to Origin, Kevin W, and you can actually have it configured right there.
Yes, you can go to Origin, but don't go directly to me, Kevin W. But yeah, originpc.com.
Yeah. Send Kevin W at originpc.com.
Like, you can go to Kevin W. Like, right.
Just send him an email and say, I need a 5000D PC, please.
So yeah, now that we're part of the Corsair family, we're obviously launching Corsair products the second they're available. So these chassis were added to our website today, the 5000 series. And what I love about the new 5000 series, what's near and dear to my heart, is customization, being very customizable. So you could customize these chassis so many different ways with airflow, RGB, the radiators, as we mentioned. So that's always near and dear to Origin PC's heart. So we're offering these chassis now on our systems in black or white. And it's fantastic to be part of the family and launching brand new products like this.
Okay, so I'll show you on the website, on Origin's website. This is pretty cool. You can go in and choose, which case you want to use, whether the Millennium chassis that is an Origin custom case, full tower, or one of our cases like the 5000 or one of the other ones. 5000 series, you can choose Airflow X or standard. You can choose if you want the white or the black version. You can add laser etch stuff to it. I mean, there's so much. You guys have so much cool customization. Change out the CPU, motherboard. You can do AMD or Intel. So basically, if you don't want to build your own, or you just are uncomfortable building your own, just go to the website on Origin PC, and actually, you might even be able to get a 30 series card that way. They have some stock. Yeah. So if you need a 3080, you can order a system with one, and Kevin's team will build it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like to say that building your own PC is the best thing out there, but we're the next best option. So we're definitely here to allow you to configure whatever type of system you would like. All of our products come with 24/7 lifetime support, so we have your back forever. Even at 3 in the morning, you can give us a call. And it's available now, and you can definitely configure it with 30 series, 3060 Ti, 3070, 3080, even 3090.
And if you want a custom Hydro X solution, they'll build it for you. So you can go on the website and say, hey, you know what? All-in-one coolers are nice, but I want a Hydro X setup. And you can set up a Hydro X selection, and it'll actually say, stage 1, stage 2 Hydro X. It's really cool to see.
I think you can definitely say that Origin's support is like a ride or die, right? Like they'll stick with you through thick and thin.
We're with you, whether you like it or not. We're with you forever. You call us, and we will answer the phone. You can challenge us, and it's actually what I love about it. It's our own techs in house. It's not an outsourced tech support. It's our own people. They're not reading a script. They're gamers. They're enthusiasts. They're actually just here to help you, and they might have come across some of the same things that you've come across.
Yeah, I spent some time with the Origin guys last year at CES before the pandemic apocalypse thing, and I have to say that you guys are really good dudes, and you have excellent taste in whiskeys, by the way. Just throwing that out there. Dmitry, have you, when you started building PCs, did you build your own for the first one, or did you buy a PC?
Oh, for sure, I built my own. Yeah.
Your very first PC, you built your own?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, like my very first PC where I could, it's not something that was purchased like as a family PC back in like the really, really old days. But when I went ahead to kind of like, had the opportunity and like the cash to spend some money on my own computer, that was full on parts. And they kind of stayed with me for many years. You upgrade certain things. Actually, my very first all-in-one cooler was the H50, right? The CORSAIR H50.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I felt so proud of that because, just bring back the days. But ever since, I've never actually gotten in this industry, it's so privileged, right? Like to be working with components, and I've never actually needed to look for components and build my own system since many years. So But
we get spoiled, right? I mean, it's like one of those things where you see, like, I hate to spoil something for the chat, but we build a bunch of these things in the office. I honestly don't know how much that memory kit costs unless I have to go look it up, right? Like I just know that I have a drawer in the lab with has 40 sticks of memory in it, and if I need 4 white memory sticks, I just grab them and I put them in a build. Kevin knows
like every user's dream. Yeah, I mean. I was testing a lot in our lab, and it's like, oh, there's a 2080, whatever. There's this and that, and it's like, just cobble it all together.
Yeah, we get really snobby about it too. It's like, oh, do I have to use a 2080? I should be a 2080 Ti in this build, and it's just like, you get to, when you don't have to pay for it we're building for photo. It's not like our home systems are these systems. These are for photo samples and for these things like this. Right. So it's just like put it together and leave it here. But
well, it's probably really fun for you guys or whoever builds like these test configurations, like the one that is right beside you, is that you most likely have this like unlimited parts budget, or not budget, but like this thing you can put something that can come from anywhere. So it's really cool to see these sort of like these really high end stuff of what's possible, and hopefully it will incite people to kind of strive towards a similar configuration in the future. If if you want to dream a little,
Yeah, exactly.
So look at what's beside George right there. That's
No, this is something I would be. I mean, I could not build this because I just don't have the cable routing skill set or patience. But I give HP, who built it, full credit. He did a great job on it. But to be honest, we have a bunch of guys here who do cable routing way better than I do. Basically, literally everybody at the company does cable routing better than I do. Spoiler alert: the reason that we created the Air 540 chassis and the 680X chassis is because I really hate cable routing, and I just wanted to shove everything in the back panel. So
I'm the same way. I used to, before the 4000 D Airflow, I have the 680X, the CORSAIR water cooling system that we built with HP, which was an amazing system, but it was like to a point where there's so many components and so many fans that you just had to hide them behind and in that second chamber and just forget about it. So love it.
We have a couple of questions from the chat. So let's start off with one. Someone asked, is CORSAIR like the best company ever? The answer to that is yes, clearly.
We might be a little bit biased, though. I mean,
confirmed.
I had a third-party independent contractor do that.
It's not even subjective. It's
as far as you know.
No,
serious questions, though. Someone asked, how do the Capellix LEDs work, and are you going to implement them on other products like fans and RAM? That's referring to the Elite Capellix products, which are not in this system, so I'm pointing at it for no reason. But actually, the Dominator Platinum RGB memory has Elite Capellix LEDs, and there was actually the first product we launched with Elite Capellix, or with Capellix LEDs. The other thing we have with the Capellix LEDs is a keyboard. The K57 keyboard has Capellix LEDs. What Capellix LEDs are, a standard LED has a little kind of a little housing, and it sits on a
Package, yeah.
surface mount, a package, and then there's a little lens on top of it, and then you solder that to the PCB, right? Basically, the way that a Capellix LED works, Kevin, you can correct my terminology if I'm incorrect on this, but it's like it mounts into the substrate directly, right?
They basically, yeah, it's almost like they're printing the emitting diode onto that PCB or flexible PCB, whatever it is. So it allows you to save a lot of space and put it in like much tighter spaces, or increase the density for the LEDs, which can give like smoother effects. I'm sure you've seen like on some fans, if there's like 4 LEDs or something, it's a little bit choppy. But if you have like 16, it looks a lot smoother, right? So it's about kind of, you could consider it like resolution, like a 1:16 resolution or something for the LED. But yeah, definitely. The great thing about Capellix is, more energy savings if you're using the same amount of LEDs. Obviously, if you're doing like a whole TV screen, like let's say you're doing like a 4K display of Capellix, it's obviously not going to be terribly energy efficient, but it will be, 1-to-1 more energy efficient than us.
Yeah, that's so what that means as a benefit side is it uses less power to create the same amount of light. So the same luminosity can be done by a smaller amount of power. So it creates less heat because you're wasting less energy doing it, and it's more energy efficient, which is why we put it on a wireless keyboard. It's also why we put it on the Elite Capellix pump cap. So the old Pro XTs and other pump caps would have like 3 or 4 LEDs in them instead of this. This is 33 LEDs in it, and the power usage and the heat is not the more significant. So the other thing is, because it doesn't have a lens over the light is much brighter for the same wattage, right? So there's a bunch of changes to Capellix LEDs that make them more efficient, better lighting, and
More
that's
apparent
why.
brightness. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So that's what Capellix LEDs is. So that's one of the questions people have had on that one. Let's ask.
They look gorgeous.
They do look really cool, especially on the Dominator Platinum RGB, which I really like.
Yeah, I have the RAM.
You saw at CES this last year our the case, right?
The case with the side panel. I was just about to laugh.
What was
like
it? Concept Orion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the case.
What did you think of that one?
I mean, it's got a really good potential behind it, like in terms of what's the next cool thing for a glass side panel, right? You put Capellix LEDs on it, and depending on the type of matrix and what the density of the LEDs per side panel, for example, you can do so much cool lighting stuff on the interior and on the exterior, because I believe there was you had like 2 sheets, right, firing inside and firing outside. So, I mean, yes. So I would love to see that.
The official take.
More
yes.
Capellix. Yes.
Let me see if I can find. Hold on a sec. I think I had a Kit Guru did a video on it, I think last year, if I'm remembering right. From
we also did it. So just
let's see if I can find yours.
Yeah, Hardware Canucks.
Sorry, don't bring up the thing until I bring up the Hardware Canucks.
I had this terrible habit last year. For some reason, the carpet was creating a bunch of static, and every time I'd get near that case, it would just zap it, and then, I felt like Shocker or something from Spider-Man. Like
We were having the same problem because we were on the other side of the booth with our Big O. So we had our Big O prototypes, the very first versions of it. And we were super paranoid about sparking the systems. But luckily, everything went perfectly smoothly.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens with CES. So just like you're walking, spark everywhere because of all the carpet. You can't escape
all
the
these
carpet.
nice hotels with super nice carpet. Yeah.
it's like
And
you're
the
on
dry
CyberCon
desert
and
doesn't. Yeah.
found the
yeah.
Allspark. I've been watching the new Transformer series.
Have you really?
It's been great actually. So.
But I'd love to hear from the chat and community. Hit us up on the chat, but also you could just tweet at us and let us know what other products would you like to see Capellix added to.
So we have a question right now. Can they ask a question? That's a great question. I think yes.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but you used your one question.
Yeah.
Just kidding. You can ask more than one.
Zing.
But does that mean that if you're looking about the more efficient LED design, does not mean that maybe you can integrate them in like wireless headsets? Because right now what are they called? Your most recent headsets with the LEDs, those aren't Capellix, right?
The Virtuoso.
The Virtuoso, yeah.
There are different LEDs. They're like pinhole micro LEDs on Virtuoso. They're not Capellix, but they're super low power.
So that is a good point, though. With wireless technology, the Capellix is it's a really great marriage, right? And that's why I think we ended up putting it in the K57 wireless, which is kind of an entry-level wireless keyboard. And that one sees really great battery life, even with full lighting effects. And then, of course, if you turn all the lighting off, you're going to have substantially more. But we really wanted to get Capellix out in the market for everyone to enjoy and not just have it on the highest end products,
Okay, I have Alan. If you want to bring up my thing, I have the concept Orion. So if people wanted to see what it looks like from the Hardware Canucks video, I can share it. So this is just a awesome, cool bokeh vibes that you can see. These are all little Capellix LEDs that are mounted in between the glass and the laminate layer over the glass. So that's all those are separate Capellix LEDs across the front and the side panel of that case, and they're all being controlled through IQ. Well, that was a prototype build of IQ, I think. But you can see there's Dmitry standing next to it.
Oh, I was wearing the shirt yesterday. If only I was wearing it today.
Then people would think you only have one shirt. So.
Would that be a Canucks to position or a?
Oh, Jesus!
No.
It's good.
This does take me back to CES last year.
Yeah, this
Fond
is the
memories.
good times when we could see people face to face without masks and. Actually, Las Vegas is a cesspool, but anyway.
Yeah, so always wear a mask when you're there.
Yeah, always wear a mask in Vegas. But anyway, that's what Concept Orion looked like, and it was a really cool design. And yes, we are still working on maybe productizing that and making a product that you can actually buy that has that technology. That was a proof of concept that we did. That was a 465X case that we had custom made for that. So we'll see maybe a cool case that you guys will see in the future that has that technology. We're still working on that in the R&D team. You guys will see a lot of that stuff. We show off the technology, and then if it's popular, we figure out how do you actually make that a real product.
And do you think it will be something that you apply yourself to a side panel, or do you think will just come built into a certain case?
It'll probably have to be built into a side panel. So there's probably going to be, I would guess, and we can't talk about future products, but from a functional perspective, you require power delivery, you require the connections to it. So it would need to be a kit that has the way to hook it up to your power supply and your USB header, so you can get it through IQ. And it would have to replace the front and side panels for a case if you had it, or it would be you could buy a case that has it pre-installed. So it may be that one day you see the 5,000, Orion case out there that has a side and front panel with the Orion LEDs in it and a controller or something. And then if you already have a 5,000, you'd be able to buy the kit for it. So that's all completely speculative. We can't commit to that, but that's how it would have. You wouldn't be able to just apply a sticker with the LEDs on it or anything like that. It would have to be a functional change.
I think the front panel on especially the XRGB models, so 4000D, 5000D, and beyond, would make more sense, because if you're applying a full LED strip on the side of the enclosure, it's a bit of a commitment. Whereas here at the front, you already have RGB built into the fans, and obviously the circular customization for the interior lighting, the exterior lighting. But on the actual side panel, I think it has a bit of a more user-friendly and kind of a broader approach where you could not go overboard with it. So that's my take.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and do another giveaway. I think it's about time for another one. So, why don't we do a giveaway for an Elite Capellix white? Is that okay for everyone in chat? So the next question we're going to ask, this one will be actually. This one's actually going to be kind of tough. So this one will be Elite Capellix oriented. So what controller is included with the Elite Capellix cooler?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Can I say it? No, I'm kidding.
You already have one.
It's not a PS5 controller, I can tell you that.
Yeah, well, way to spoil it. No, it's the question he's asking is, this is one of the core differences between Elite Capellix and a Pro XT or Platinum cooler. The controller that comes with it to control the lighting and fans is something else. So what is it called? If you know the answer, post it in the chat. You win free stuff.
It's not a SCUF controller.
It's not a SCUF controller. Yeah. All right. So yeah, there's somebody that already said it. I saw that. So figure out who that is. Let's see here.
So yeah, so I'll go ahead and go over the.
Go ahead, Kev.
Sorry.
Spoiler now. They've already answered it. You can tell them what it is and what.
No. You go ahead.
I've talked.
By all means.
All right.
Sorry, I was looking at a comment from another PM. He's
okay.
messing me live.
Commander Core, it's called.
Yeah.
And what Commander Core is basically, if you haven't seen the Commander Pro, it has a bunch of fan headers for lighting and fan control that's built in. This thing can control the lighting and the fans for 6 fans, and you can then use it to basically use it as a smart fan controller. So you can set up real-time curves and everything in IQ. You can change the lighting and fans. You can have the lighting change when the temperature gets hot or something like that. So you can use that all through IQ. Commander Core comes with the Elite Capellix coolers. So if you buy an H100i Elite Capellix that has 2 fans with it, it will control up to 4 more fans. So you can control 6 total fans in your case. So you can convert your boring old dumb case into a smart case just by buying an Elite Capellix cooler. So there is my marketing spiel. So,
but it's actually a really cool product. I've used the Commander Pro many times on many systems, and just the convenience of like plugging fans into a single hub through which everything gets controlled through IQ. It's so convenient. And like, this isn't because I'm wearing a Corsair t-shirt, but like, it's like, I actually like think it's a cool product. Yeah.
That's a fun story, actually. That's not a t-shirt. Dmitry has a full chest Corsair tattoo. That's a nice piece.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes it comes off. Sometimes.
It's not. Is that
cool
HD UV printed on your chest?
No, yeah. So a great thing I think a lot of people don't really think about when it comes to IQ is like performance logging and things like that. So IQ actually has this built in. So if you wanted to log your temperatures or your frequencies for your CPU and stuff, like while you're gaming or benchmarking, you can do that through IQ. And with the Commander Core, Commander Pro, or whatever, it can give you a really nice granularity for what type of data you're logging, and then it just outputs that. And then if you're wanting to get into Excel, I love spreadsheets. Just want to say you can graph it and everything, and so IQ is really feature rich. There's a lot of like power user kind of things that I think a lot of people don't really consider when it comes to IQ. It's just like, oh, RGB lighting, but it's so much more than just RGB lighting.
Yep. All right. Let's see. So Dmitry, quick question for you. You've used a bunch of different products, not just ours, but everybody else's stuff too. And everybody has kind of the lighting and the fan control and all that stuff through different softwares and everything like that. In your opinion, is this something you remember back in the old days when you literally have a knob on the front of your case to change the fan speed? Or some people would have like 5 1/4-inch bay devices that had little kind of, software integration stuff where you'd be able to see a little LCD screen. Do you prefer kind of the old method where you'd have a knob on the front and, a little front bay, or do you think it makes more sense to do it through software?
I think it depends on how many fans you are connecting to a set fan controller fan configuration. Like with the Commander Pro, for example, you can do like 6, and you can like do fan splitters in certain ones. So if you're going full build, it makes sense to have something that can control many more fans than a simple little manual controller hub. It's sometimes nice to have like this low, medium, high. If you are the type of person who, let's say, if you're gaming, you just put it to high, you put on headphones, you don't care about noise. It's a good approach, like it's a simplified approach, versus like knowing that IQ is gonna bump up the fan speed based on certain temperature. It really depends on what type of like user you are and how much control you want to have through IQ, because once you, let's say, jump into IQ, you kind of still have to configure things. Everything is set to default, but if you want to kind of understand what is happening at certain temperatures, then you have to play around with things. But then going the manual route of like having a knob or a little low, medium, high fan control that's built into the case, it's almost it's kind of, I guess, if you're more of an old school and prefer that approach. But I personally like the software route, because when I like to set my like all-in-one cooler pump speed a certain speed, so I don't hear it. And the same thing with the fans. So
one of the things I like about it personally is that with the software, it adjusts it automatically. So Alan, if you can bring up the screen, one of the things I like about it is I'll show you. This is the profiles that come with the Elite Capellix coolers. So the Elite Capellix cooler has 4 built-in profiles. There's 0 RPM mode, which has the fans going not at all until it hits a certain temperature. Then there's the kind of what we call quiet mode, which is very low speed fans until it hits a certain temperature. We have a balanced mode, which is the default, which is kind of a nice hybrid of quiet at low speeds, and then it cools very quickly. It turns the fans up on a steep ramp so that as soon as you start sensing temperature increase, you get a much higher fan speed. And then extreme mode, if you're overclocking and you just want to make sure you don't have any temperature issues, you can set that profile. And these profiles you can just switch through an IQ manually, right? With the olden days of like having a knob on the front of the case, you'd sit down, you'd be doing emails, everything's in low mode, and then you're going to launch a game, like back in the Battlefield 2 days or something. You launch a game, you put on your headset, you turn on the knob and crank it up to 11 or whatever, and it made you feel like a helicopter pilot. You had stuff to do. Put your headset, crank your knob up, flip the switches, and there is something kind of weirdly fun about that, but it's also a giant pain because the fans are just doing exactly that. They're either going maximum or they're going minimum. So I like the fact of having smart control through software, which means that the fans go up and down as they're needed. And then these are, like I said, these are just the built-in profiles. If you want to, you can go into IQ and create your own profile that says, hey, actually, I really don't care if it's running at 100% RPM all day long, or I'm going to go from 40% to 100%, and that's it. There's no in between. That's all I care about. So you can set up your own profiles in that too. And the thing I like about that is you can even do that in IQ. You can do that tied to specific fans and specific temperatures. So I can say that when my GPU hits this temperature, change the front intake fans only to this speed. And that's something that I think a lot of people overlook. Most people go in and just say all fans to maximum or all fans to minimum. But I like that granularity. I like that level of control.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
There's also another I think consideration people need to make is like with new CPUs, particularly the AMD and Intel stuff, depending on like cooling overhead or power overhead, they'll actually automatically overclock themselves depending on how cool they can stay or how much power is being supplied to them. So if you have it on software control, it will ramp up incrementally together, and it'll kind of work together with the automatic software control and the automatic overclocking.
Nice. Congrats to Trazer854 for winning the last giveaway, by the way. So that was Trazer854. Nice work on that. All right, so let's go one more step before we talk too much. Elite Capellix White, I wanted to talk, since we're talking about that still, for just a second. Like I mentioned before, it's the white version of Elite Capellix. If you didn't see that 3 or 4 months ago, one of the things you can see is that, like I said, it comes with the Commander Core. You can turn your case into a smart case. Basically, through IQ software, it comes with the maglev fans, which are really nice. The ML series have magnetic levitation bearings, which means that, at 2,000 RPM, they'll sound like something that's a traditional fan around 1,600 RPM. The noise is much lower at higher RPMs. So they're really, really nice, very low friction. And then, obviously, like I said, the lighting control, 240 and 360 millimeter spot with white ML's fans, really, really nice. And then these pump caps, actually, there's 2 different caps that come in there. One of them looks like this with the little square that's surrounded. And the other one, I don't know if it's on this page right now, but it's a flat one that doesn't have the square on it. So I highly recommend you guys take a look at that. If you're looking for a new AIO and you also want to make a smart case out of your system, the Elite Capellix coolers in both black and white are available. So check that out. I know that if you don't want to put one in your own system, you can probably get them from Kevin W. at Origin pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yes. Always go to Kevin W. Yes.
Yeah.
Directly to me.
Specifically, Kevin W. at OriginPC.com.
1-800-KEVIN-W.
I apologize if that is your actual
I'm on
email
standby waiting. That's all good.
Please create a spam filter for that email address now. I apologize in advance.
He just has a red telephone that's just like...
Pick it up.
Can I take your order? Yes.
Can I get George fired, please? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Always hit us up. Yeah.
Let's chat with Dmitry a little bit about his preferences on build quality and just details on cases, because you are a very prolific case reviewer, as we all know.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and so what do you look for in a case? What are your top, like, let's say 5 things that you look for?
Well, I mean, top 5, huh? I think the most thing, like the top number one thing that when it comes to like building a system is, how do you go away from the system feeling? Like, are you frustrated? Are you happy with the process? And so again, like just going back to like your new CORSAIR redesign with the 4000D, that surprised me, because it kind of brought me back to the original days of like when I first got my first CORSAIR enclosure, and like remember how cool the 800D was, and what that stood as, like as the leader within the industry. And so, I mean, user-friendly assembly, right? Like just removing the front panel to clean the dust filter. Is that easy? Is that difficult? Is accessing certain like fan brackets, because if you're installing something in the front, is it you have to like go inside and unscrew thumb screws that are just like completely jammed in there out of the factory, or you're looking that you just go in there with a small screwdriver and unscrew everything easily? So the user-friendly element really encompasses like everything, right? Like really tight thumb screws, or they are just nice and loose for your fingers to get in there and do the job. The user manual has been kind of like the user manual across the industry has been kind of all over the place. Some are really fantastic and some are not. And just for you to understand how things work, I mean, the user manual, I always look at it because I review so many cases, yet you can miss so many little details that you don't realize are like built into the design of the enclosure, right? So
that's actually really that's a good point. So, as a product manager myself, with the QSG or the manuals, you want it to be more in depth, is what you're saying, like, and kind of define all the features and little like Easter eggs, I guess, of the products.
Yeah, like for example, certain user manuals are like black and white, but the item that you're supposed to be removing is color coded. So like it stands out as a visual thing. It's very simple, but it stands out. So you don't have a complication of trying to understand exactly how a certain case or a certain like part of the enclosure is drawn on the manual, because it's like 2D and it's maybe sometimes hard to see if like there's brackets and everything like that. So just coming from that angle, if like you see it and you understand it, you know that somebody went in and they knew exactly what they were doing. Because otherwise, other times you're like, I don't understand this, and like just little things that kind of get you to either move on with the building assembly or question like what is happening here.
Got it. Wow, that's great insight. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going off of Dmitri's build experience here. So now let's kind of flip the switch and go to the pre-built systems and see, like we're talking about self-built, pre-built.
Yeah, so one of the things we talked about at the end of last month's call, was that we would talk about some small form factor stuff this month. Spoiler alert, small form factor stuff is our Origin Chronos PCs, which are pretty great. So, Kevin, you want to go over that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So the other end of the spectrum here, right? The 5000D series, fantastic new chassis. But we also want to touch upon our small form factor systems that we offer. So our Chronos small form factor line was updated last year. So this is our brand new version of the Chronos. It's a pretty small chassis. Basically, what we designed it around was the smallest chassis that could also fit a 240 liquid cooler, all-in-one liquid cooler, and the largest GPU. So yes, you can fit a 3090 GPU in the small form factor case. The height is 11 inches. The width is 7 inches, and the depth is 15.5 inches. So to put it in perspective, I think if you're on the website there, there's a shot that we're showing it next to a controller. The chassis itself is 5 pounds. Yeah, I mean that case it's astonishing how much power you can put in there. I actually have one of these at home, and I stream Cyberpunk and whatever game I'm playing. I'm currently playing Cyberpunk, and people are often saying like, there's no way you're playing that game on that tiny PC. But yeah. It's a beautiful small form factor chassis, and true to Origin PC's customization, we can customize it. So it can come in any color. We can custom paint the actual chassis. The side panels can both be tempered glass or they can be mesh. So with the mesh airflow, right, which is what you see right there, the mesh airflow side panels, you can have a 240 radiator there, and you have a little bit better airflow in your system. So at home, I have the mesh going on. I love it. And, really, really happy to the way the system came out, and also obviously configured with IQ. The front logo lights up. You have USB-C port on the front of the chassis, and it has all the latest technology. And, chat, let us know what you think about it. And everybody, here on the stream, what are you guys' thoughts on small form factor PCs and this new chassis of ours?
Yeah, we had some people ask earlier, we've announced the 4000, now the 5000. Someone was like, are you guys doing a 2000 or a 3000? We can't talk about unannounced products, but you're not the only people to ask that question. So
why don't we start with you, George? And am I pointing at you? Yeah, and then go to Dmitry. let's just go around and see what are your thoughts
on what, small form factor?
Yeah, well, and Kronos.
Kronos is awesome. I like the Kronos a lot. So what I like, as someone who has built a number of small form factor cases and has Sasquatch hands, I hate building in small form factor cases in general. So I love the fact that it takes up less desk space. I love the fact that it's unobtrusive and on the side of my desk, but I don't like putting it together and running cables and snapping everything together. So the idea of someone building a small form factor case for me with exactly the stuff I would want, like I can go on the website and choose which processor, whether I add thermal paste, whether I want to do all these things, what fans I put in it, even, down to the point where I can choose from like 5 or 6 different motherboards. Sign me up for that gig. I realize that I'm going to pay a small premium for that. But, it's one of those things that it's, for me at my stage where I'm like, I've got kids, I don't have time to sit down and build, 2 hours to build a PC perfectly, cable routing and everything. I'd rather just pay the extra $100 or whatever dollars to the guys down in Origin to have them put it together for me. So, or, more logistically, I'll pay the extra whatever dollars and then take my employee discount and have them do it for me.
Does the employee discount carry over to this square here? Or?
You all are on the VIP list, absolutely.
Oh, okay, cool. Nice. I'm
now watch the Dimitri's a shill comments just roll through the chat.
Yes,
that's right. No, but just to keep going with the conversation, like the ITX market, so it's so cool and exciting because you have so much potential for power density in a really small package, but it's like if you're just going with a single GPU, and why not go an ITX route? It's slightly more expensive components wise, but right. It's very rewarding and it's a great challenge, especially for chunky fingers. So like doing cable management, and you it's one of those things again. It's like if you're working with an ITX enclosure that was designed with an ITX in mind, then cable management should be like somewhat simple. Just like you were building in the mid towers, just everything is a bit more compact. You have to follow a certain thing before installing everything else, like a certain hardware and steps, so that everything is routed properly. But the cable management used to be my least favorite part of doing systems. But with ITX and more recently, I'm kind of discovering the joy of like routing everything properly and using zip ties properly, or should I say tweezers. Just to get everything in order,
You make a really good point there about, a single GPU. So if you're looking for a system with a single GPU, why not go small form factor ITX? And that's actually, exactly what went through my mind when I was outfitting, my rig at home. I was thinking, all right, what am I going to, upgrade? What's going to be my next PC? And I've gone with a Millennium for so many years in a row. And this is the first time that I said, you know what, I have a Millennium already at home. That'll be my stream PC. That'll have my capture card in there, my Elgato capture card in there. I really just need a straight up gaming PC. And SLI is not a thing anymore. So I was able to put the fastest GPU in there, single GPU. And I have, AMD 5950X liquid cooled. I have the fastest gaming PC you could possibly get, and it's in a small form factor. So gone are the days of having to sacrifice. You can actually have it all now in small form factor. And we took a lot of feedback from the community, and one of the things that we've changed on the Kronos this time around was that we actually made it a little bit bigger. So if you guys are familiar with our Kronos from about a year and a half ago, it was a little bit smaller. However, we got feedback from the community that it was just a little too tight, a little too small. You couldn't fit full-size memory. You couldn't upgrade it very easily. It was just so tight. So now with this new Kronos, it's much easier to upgrade it. You can fit full-size memory, and you could still have a very tiny PC and all the power that you could possibly ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of reiterate what everyone else is saying with Mini ITX. I personally use a first-gen CORSAIR 1 that I kind of gutted everything out and put everything back in with newer components. But it sits on top of my desk next to my monitor. And I like just the small footprint, but if I didn't have that, I would most definitely consider an Origin Chronos. I mean, the fact that you can fit full-size RAM, there's a spot for 240 millimeter on that mesh side panel. It's just highly upgradable, and I think that's something that you don't often see with pre-built mini ITX systems, or just pre-built in general, because sometimes they'll use proprietary stuff. But Origin, I like that they use all kind of off-the-shelf components, and Kevin,
it would be built the way you would do it, except you don't have to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's like I said, when I'm 42 years old now. When I was 32 years old, I would, never buy a pre-built PC. Now I'm like, yeah, I probably will eventually just get a Corsair One or one of the new Origin PCs, because I just don't want to have to spend the hours putting it together myself anymore. I suppose I could have the team do it, but that seems kind of weird to ask your team to do that. And they're watching this chat anyway, so they just heard it. I spoiled it. But so, guys, would you mind putting together this system? No reason. Here are the specs.
No reason.
Yeah, have it delivered to my house just for things.
And stuff and things.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things that like I've built so many systems for like my production systems, gaming systems, but I've been running the Corsair One machine that I reviewed like 2019, I think, like the Corsair i165, and it's been like the most solid machine that I've had. Like I've gone through like a few production machines because of some issues and stuff, but I don't know what you guys did there. Maybe like the hardware components just like work so well together, kind of like you would expect in a pre-built where everything is just set up to work just as fine without any tinkering required to get everything to the BSOD free zone.
BSOD. I don't think there's ever BSOD free. It's like BSOD, unlikely.
Yeah.
Especially if you start running like modern games or download a new NVIDIA driver or something like that, and God knows what happens.
Things get a little shaky. Yeah.
That's the PC gaming is better than it's ever been, but it's still PC gaming, which by its nature is like, you're doing it because you have way more flexibility and capability, but you are also paying the price of that compatibility concern and all the configuration stuff. So yeah, you could run 25 different resolutions and 300 different graphic settings in your game. But one of them will, literally shut your system down every time you try and go left or something. So
my friend is having this issue on Cyberpunk. Actually, every time he engages in this like big faction battle, it just crashes. Like it's every single time. Doesn't matter which way he comes in. I don't know what's going on, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, I made the mistake of setting my. So someone asked for my PC specs. I right now have a 7980 XE processor, so I have an 18-core Intel processor. It's nice, but it runs really hot, and it's a couple of generations old now, so it's nice. But it's running on a 240 millimeter. It's running on a 240 millimeter radiator, and I had taken the fans off the cooler and put them onto my Commander Core, or Commander Pro rather, to control them, right? So I can control my fans on my system. And like an idiot, I had unplugged the Commander Core and forgotten about it. So I didn't even realize, because I wasn't looking at it, that my fans weren't even spinning. And when I was just doing emails, I didn't have any problems. Like I could go into work and do emails and work 8 hours a day, no problem at all, with no fans running in the system at all. I was like, didn't realize anything was a problem. And then I tried to go into Cyberpunk, and it kept crashing. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on with my system? And I realized it kept, I looked back at the system and the little pump cap on the cooler was red, which it does when it's sensing overheat mode. So when the coolant gets too hot, the light turns red on the front of your cooler to tell you, hey, my CPU temp is hot. And like an idiot, I looked at it and it was like 84 degrees Celsius. And I was like, oh, wow, I must have done something stupid. And I realized none of the fans were lit up. And then I realized none of the fans were moving. And
wow.
I want to make sure that you guys understand. Yeah. I have literally been gaming on PCs since like 1995 on my own PC, before that, even then. So I have decades of experience, and I screwed that up fiercely. Like it was a terrible screw up. So anybody in the chat,
you're human.
Dude,
it sounds like a clickbait video. Man plays Cyberpunk on a fanless PC.
You won't
see what happens.
Next. I just want to inspire anybody in the chat that if they have ever done something they think is stupid, that is dumber than almost anything I have heard from anybody else. So trying to game on a 18-core 2080 Ti system with literally zero fans running
Right.
Don't do that. I recommend
It's kind of like gaming on your notebook while it's on your lap and everything is covered at the bottom when the old stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or I saw once when I worked in a computer shop, I saw this lady had a laptop kind of cozy that she had knitted. Like it was like a thing so she could keep it soft on her lap so it wasn't hard. And it had literally covered every ventilation port. It was like pink frilly yarn and everything. And it was like glued to the thing. So
I think that's a good transition though, because Kevin W. I'm Kevin G. Kevin W.
Yes.
at Origin, if you want to call him on his red telephone, has new laptops. What can you tell us about these awesome?
I have them on screen right now, actually.
So I've been over here the whole time thinking, like, I can't wait to talk about the laptops. But the 5000 series is an amazing launch. I'd love to talk about that. I could talk about that forever. But at the same time, I knew this whole time that eventually we're going to get to these new laptops. So let me set the table by just talking about gaming laptops in general. So, everybody knows that gaming PCs and consoles have been taking off and there's been growth in the gaming industry. But probably what you don't know is that the gaming PC or gaming laptop category is actually the fastest growing category. So in the past 7 years, the gaming laptop category has grown 7 times. Exponentially, just growth, insane growth. And just 4 years ago, 4 years ago we launched the first Max-Q laptop. So this is our now 3rd generation Max-Q laptop. So 4 years ago, before we launched our Max-Q laptop, 1080 was the fastest laptop you can get. GPU was a 1080. So just 4 years ago, gaming laptops were about average 9 pounds, and they were running a 1080. So fast forward to today, and we're launching the now 30 series laptops, and it's half the weight. So you're looking at half the weight, half the thickness, and it's actually 10 times faster than laptops were 4 years ago. It's totally insane. So I'm super happy to announce our new Evo laptops, our Evo 15S and Evo 17S. They've been updated with brand new 30 series graphics cards. So we have the 3070 Max-Q and the 3080 Max-Q. 3080 Max-Q actually goes up to 16 gigs of RAM. Insane amount of RAM. So what we have are 2nd gen ray tracing cores, 3rd gen tensor cores. Also has NVIDIA DLSS, which is an amazing AI technology. Actually gets better over time. Gives you basically double the performance. Some people have called it basically magic, or some press sites have been quoted of saying up to 85% higher frames per second when you turn on NVIDIA DLSS. So, I can show you the laptops here, and I think George is going to bring them up on screen.
Yeah.
But what I can show you here, this is the 15S, and it's super thin. It's less than an inch thick. It's under 4.5 pounds.
Wow.
And we also have the Evo 17S. Oh, here we go. We have a better angle here.
That is.
Ooh, look at that
So
angle.
this angle,
Where
you
was
can
this angle
see-
hiding?
I can't really tell.
this
I can't really
puppy
tell.
is.
Can you send that to me so I can see it in person?
You need to see it in person. And this
I'll
is the
send
17.
it back next year when you have the next gen cards.
And then this is our 17-inch laptop.
Nice.
So these are brand new thin and light laptops, already available on our website. Just launched this week at CES.
I really like those thin bezels around the screen too. Really thin bezel around the screen on that 17 is really nice.
Yeah, we've. Thanks for pointing that out. We have the thinner bezel for around our screens. And to talk a little bit more about screens, we actually have 3 screen options. So we have a 4K OLED screen, but at 60 hertz. So one of the most beautiful screens we've ever had in a laptop. We also have a 300 hertz panel, 1080p, and then we have a 144 hertz 1080p. So we have the extreme 300 hertz panel. We have kind of a middle road 144 hertz, and then we have the 4K 60 hertz, which is the most beautiful screen that we offer.
So you can just go in and choose, I want the 15-inch, I want to pick one of these 3 screens, I want to pick the amount of memory, the amount of storage, and all that stuff, and order it. And you guys just send it to my house with all that stuff built into it, ready to go.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, go to our website. You can configure it there. You can also choose custom laser etching for the A panel, or custom paint, or custom HD UV printing.
Well, that's
So
pretty
if you
cool.
want to be like Dmitry and have Corsair printed on your chest, we could print that on the front of your laptop.
Yeah.
So I'm on the page for the Evo 15S right now. So you can go in here. Here's the Evo 15S. Let's say, we pick, you can do custom print, but let's just do, that kind of background with the Origin logo. And then custom laser etching, hydro dipping, whatever. And then down here, you go through display and GPU sections. So I can choose the 30 series, obviously.
Yeah, let's talk about the displays real quick while you're on this section. As a gamer, I really like to have high frame rates. I'm 1080p is probably like good for me as long as I can hit like 120 or something frames per second. So what displays are what kind of configurations do you have on these new laptops, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm really curious. I'm going to give you the display options, and I'm really curious for the chat and the 4 of you guys, 3 of you guys. What display would you guys choose? Personally,
Okay.
I would choose the 4K OLED screen. I'm a single player, game player, and I love the story mode, and I really just get into the game and the graphics and kind of go at my own pace. So I'm not an intense esports player. If I do that, I get my butt kicked. So we have the 4K 60 hertz.
So chat, you got 4K 60 hertz.
Yeah. And then we have 1080p 300 hertz.
1080p 300 hertz, or
and another 1080p 144 hertz.
okay. And the difference, what's the difference between the 144 hertz and the 300 hertz aside from the 1080p? Are they?
It's just going to get a different price point. Yeah.
Okay.
So depending on your budget, you would go with the 300 hertz or the 144 hertz.
Okay. So yeah, I think that 4K OLED is with the 3080 is a pretty nice screen for single player stuff for sure.
Yeah, especially if you're like into pixel density on a 15 or 17-inch notebook, 4K would be. I mean, you have to upscale in Windows to at least 150 to see anything. But I think like if you were into fast-paced stuff, 144 I think would be enough. Mm-hmm. But the display industry, like right now, I'm looking at a 360 hertz panel, and so if you want to kind of like future-proof stuff, and if you're playing CS:GO and you need like constant above 200 FPS constantly, just to make sure that you're matching the frame rate to refresh rate. Yeah, it's a good option if you play on a notebook all the time.
I think, yeah, and that's a good point. If you are playing on a laptop and you are buying into this kind of like pre-built system, why wouldn't you just go, for the 300 hertz? Like I know budgetary concerns, are a thing, but it's like if I'm going to buy this laptop, I want it to last as long as possible, and like you said, future-proof it and go with this 300 hertz, which is absolutely insane. Like I mean, that's a huge refresh rate on a laptop screen. So I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, I kind of like. I yesterday when we were thinking about it, I kind of thought, the other day we were thinking about it, I was thinking like the kind of 1080p screen with 144 or 300 hertz would be great. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized like I really like the deep blacks of the OLED a lot. And for my day-to-day use on laptop stuff, it'd be hard to get past that, really nice deep blacks and color stuff that the OLEDs do.
And let's be honest, I mean, like 60 FPS, like for single-player games, or even sometimes like competitive, like if you're not super competitive and trying to get in there at like grandmaster level, 60 FPS is just fine. And then you're also going to have that really rich color from the OLED screen. So the only solution is to buy one of each. I mean, that's
clearly buy a pair and a spare.
Yeah,
I was not expecting that, Kevin G. That was just like
yeah. But speaking of the new, the new GPU is really the shining star here. And as we're talking about 4K, I'm kind of reminded of when it was 1080, the GTX 1080 graphics card. 4K screen really didn't make sense. I used to tell people, don't get a 4K screen. A 1080 graphics card can't really push 4K. And then 20 series, I would tell people, well, it depends on what you're playing. Some games you're going to be able to push 4K with the 20 series, some games not. And now with 30 series, you could literally play any game and at 4K. So there's really no limitation now. It's really up to your personal preference if you want 4K or if you want 1080p with more screen hertz.
Okay, cool. So if you need a new laptop, definitely check out the Origin website. The Evo 15S, Evo 17S are there. If you don't want a laptop, but you still want a small form factor PC, go get a Chronos. If you decide, you know what, I don't want a small form factor, I'm going to build my own PC, or I want a full tower, or a full-size tower rather, go with the 5000D, or have Kevin's team build you a 5000D with the Millennium PC there. That is what we have going on. Let's do some lightning round questions. I did see some questions in the chat I'm going to address. One guy made fun of my giant Sasquatch hands and said, what kind of mouse do you use with Sasquatch hands? I personally like the Night Sword mouse that we have. Iron Claw is also very large. If you like a big, kind of a palm grip mouse, Iron Claw is great. There are other mice that are easily that big. Scimitar is pretty good for that if you like that type of thing. M65 is great if you like a more claw grip style. My hands are too big to be comfortable on stuff like Qatar, but a lot of people really like the Qatar and the smaller mice as well. So that's what I use personally. Kevin, what mouse are you using?
Kevin G or W?
Yeah, G.
I use the Glaive Pro.
Glaive.
Yeah, so the Glaive, the original Glaive was probably one of my favorites, and then when the Glaive Pro came out, I was like, "Ooh, I need that," and I got one. So that's what I use every day for productivity and gaming.
Cool. Dark Core is also big too. For someone mentioned in the chat, Dark Core Pro is also a fairly good sized mouse and is a wireless cool thing too. So
That's actually what I have. I go with the Dark Core RGB wireless with a wireless charging mouse pad, and oh my gosh, I will never go with anything else. I don't have to plug it in.
The
I
Qi
never
charging mouse pad
yeah.
is pretty nice, right?
I never have to plug it in. I just leave it on the Qi charger, and when I'm using the mouse, I can actually put my phone on the Qi charger as well and charge my phone. So it's an amazing combination of wireless mouse and mouse mat.
Hey Kevin, so we actually had a question for you concerning that incredible wall behind you. How long, Gert K, how long did it take to assemble that wall?
Wow, it's a great question. I have no idea. This wall has actually been here for maybe 7 years, so it's been here
It was
for a
there when you
long
moved
time.
into the building. It was there before.
We just inherited it now.
It was
Well, actually, fun fact, this building is an old Alienware building. So
Ah.
I worked in this building when I was at Alienware. Then we started Origin PC at a much smaller building and eventually worked our way back into getting this building.
Wow.
So now we're back where we started.
Started at the
but-
top, then moved to the bottom, then back to the top.
But yeah, the game boxes you see behind us are real game boxes. It's my personal collection of my partner Hector. These are our personal game boxes. So some of them you'll see repeats, and some of them actually have the discs in them. So it's pretty crazy. I love seeing this wall, and kind of takes me back and does make me sad that there's no longer game boxes like this. Everything is now digital.
What's some of the oldest games on that wall?
Oh, some of the oldest games, probably what I'm seeing right there, ATF, the larger box. And you could tell actually that it's an older game because of the larger box. So at some point, the gaming PC industry went with smaller boxes. Yeah.
I remember
I love that Half-Life and Battlefield 2 are right next to each other. That's a solid combination.
Yes. We should count one day how many Battlefields are on this wall, because there's Battlefield 2142, Battlefield Vietnam. There's a lot of Battlefields on there.
Well,
I think
Half-Life
Battlefield-
plus 2, Half-Life 3 confirmed? Is that?
I think Battlefield 1942 was the first game I ever bought that came in the small box, if I remember right. Like, I think that was the first game I bought as a PC game, and I was like, wow, this box is way smaller than I remember, the giant PC boxes used to come in back in like 2001 or whatever it was. So, but that was, the olden days of PC gaming.
But I haven't bought a physical game for PC in years, ever since I found out Steam existed, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But what happens now? Like, can you physically buy something and it's just a box and you have like a key inside that you can just register?
That's what happened when I bought the Cyberpunk Collector's Edition. It came with a statue and a steel book, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. But then you open it and it's just a code. There's no disc. It's just a digital code.
That's what happened with my Halo 5 Collector's Edition also. It came with the statue and everything, and then it's just like this tiny little slip with the code. I'm like, oh, that's anticlimactic. But
But I mean, it makes sense. We don't need discs. I don't really need discs.
That's
I
actually
want
on
a
the
disc.
opposite. I'm actually annoyed when they only give me the disc. Like I bought a year ago for Red Dead Redemption 2. I bought a PS4 Pro to play Red Dead Redemption 2 on it, right? And it came in the bundle with Red Dead Redemption 2, but it came with the disc, right? And like the code you didn't get the code. You have to physically put the disc in to play the game. You couldn't just download the game and punch in your code and authorize it. You literally had to have the disc in the system, which annoyed the heck out of me. I was like, man, I have to get up and walk across the room and put this disc in like it's 1990.
First world problems.
Yeah. Life is so hard.
Do you guys remember? I'm an old school gamer. George is an old school gamer. I am. What was the first game that you had to digitally download it, or you had to digitally register it, and it kind of pissed you off? I could tell you what mine is, but
What is it? What's yours?
Half-Life 2 was the first game that you were Steam, Valve, they forced you to go online and register it, and the whole industry was so upset. But looking back on that moment, that literally was one of the things that saved PC gaming, because PC gaming was really being hurt. The industry was being hurt by pirating. People were pirating games left and right. And then thank goodness for Valve, thank goodness for Blizzard, with World of Warcraft, these digital type of games experiences that's killed piracy. So that ended up being a good thing. But it's funny how you never know. Some things people don't like change. Sometimes change is actually going to benefit you immensely in the long run.
So I remember when they invented Steam, when they came up with Steam, because I had been a Counter-Strike player since beta, when they were playing Counter-Strike beta in like 1999. And then they came out with Steam, and you had to log into Steam to play Counter-Strike for a while. Like it was like the first time, I think it was like 1.0 or something. You had to have Steam installed. And we were furious. Like all of my Counter-Strike clan were like, I can't believe they put this bloatware software and blah, blah, blah. And then like 5 years later, it's like, wow, Steam is like the best thing in the world. I can't believe I ever used to have like a CD Logic case full of game discs and stuff, which I still have in the garage. And I still...
Same.
I used, what I found on that CD Logic case, Kevin W? MDK. You remember MDK?
Oh, yes, I do. Yep.
If you guys on the chat have never heard of MDK or played MDK, you should pray that someone somewhere remakes it, because it was a really, really fun game that they should totally redo. It would be awesome with today's capabilities.
My Logic case just consisted of all RTSs. It was like all Command and Conquer, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3. Yeah, it was just all RTS. But so actually, I saw a question in the chat talking about the push-pull radiators on the 5000 series. So they wanted to know, do all the 360 millimeter slots support push-pull?
I guess it would depend on if you're putting stuff, like if you're doing like this case here where we have the reservoir and pump combo right in front of it, then no, you couldn't put a push-pull there because we're taking up that space. But theoretically, yeah, depending on how much stuff you put in front of it, you should be able to put a push-pull in front, inside, or on top. With the top one, you put the fans kind of sandwiched. The internal fans are here, and then the top fans are in this section above that. So you kind of push-pull it that way. But the front and the side should be easy depending on what you put in there.
And I think you can install fans above the frame, the top too, right?
Yeah. Dmitry, what's your favorite Corsair case that you've played with so far?
My favorite Corsair case? I mean, come on, I keep coming back to it. I don't want to sound like, but 4000 D airflow. That's like my benchmark for like super easy assembly, like cable management. This is just so well done. And it's one of those cases that Kevin G was talking about, like the small details where like all the ventilation pattern is the same across like the PCI devices, the front panel, the power supply shroud. So it's a very cohesive design. It's not like disjointed where the ventilation in the front is slightly different from the power supply shroud, for example. Kind of, yeah, that's like my mid-tower choice right now for sure. And
what about yours, Kevin G?
My favorite Corsair PC case? The Corsair 1 chassis, but I know, I mean, if you just as a case, I actually really loved the 570X just because of the aesthetic. But cable management was interesting in that one because
especially you could open power supply shroud, like there was no cover there, right? The 570X.
And you could, on the back was the glass panel too, so you really had to make sure all your cabling was great. And I mean, I spent the time doing it, but if I had to do it again, I don't know if I would have the fortitude to do so.
What about yours, Kevin W?
Well, I'm gonna give you my favorite all-time Corsair chassis, and I'm gonna go old school. So, fun fact: when we started Origin PC 2009, the first chassis, the first PC we ever launched, was a 800D.
Ooh.
And we built the 800D. I remember we built it in my living room on my pool table. That was the first PC that we used for photos of the website, the first PC that we sent to review, our first chassis. And at that time, we had no idea that the 800D would be the best for so long. It ended up being our chassis for our Millennium and our Genesis for like 4 or 5 years, like an insane amount of time, maybe 6 years. So cool. I always... Whenever I think of Corsair, I always go back to that first memory of the 800D and such a solid, beautiful chassis that lasted for so many years.
Hey, Alan, if you want to share the screen, I'll bring up the 800D for those of you guys who haven't seen it. The 800D was our first case. This is what it looked like. It was a big slab of aluminum on the front and then a steel chassis internally. And fun fact, I built this system, which is why I don't build them anymore. You can tell the water cooling tubing was not great.
It looks fine for like 19.
It looks like, yeah, for 1935 it would be great, but this was like 2008.
Only the graphics cards and the RAM are water cooled, not the CPU.
Yeah,
I mean,
right, exactly. Well, to be honest with you, we built this system to show off what we called at the time was our memory cooler. It was a DDR2 water block that we built called the I believe it was called the H30. That was a water block that went on top. And actually, we had a Peltier cooled version of it. You could get
wow.
below ambient temp with the T30. It was a little Peltier device that would cool your memory below ambient temperatures, and it had a humidity sensor so that it would make sure that it would monitor barometric pressure so you wouldn't get condensation. So it would stop. Yeah, it was like way over engineered.
What happened to it?
Well, no one bought it because it was like $250. So like, and it turns out that if we were going to spend all that money and time putting the technology into cooling something, it probably should have been the CPU or the GPU and not memory. But at the time, memory was our core business, so that's kind of what we spent all our time doing. But there was a lot of people who were like, are we ever really going to make money with cases and power supplies? Memory is really where it's at. And anyway, those people don't work here anymore. So
I saw. So when Kevin was talking about the 800D here, like I heard. Or not heard, but I saw just like these nice little like smiles on George and Dmitry's faces, like as if there was some nostalgia there. I mean,
sure.
Yeah,
Dmitry, from my side is like that's how I discovered Hardware Canucks. Like before working at Hardware Canucks, it's like when I saw the early case reviews, and that was one of like the most legendary cases that kind of like took off with like the all black interior and like a totally new design. And like full modularity pieces and some cable management. Like rubber grommets didn't used to be a thing, right?
No, so this is a funny story. The rubber grommets have become standard like across the industry, but it was done because when we designed this case, I was the guy who was in charge of building all of our trade show systems back in the day. And we used to use a lot of Silverstone cases because Silverstone was really, really pretty and really nice aluminum cases back then. TJ07, TJ09. Those are really great cases like 2007, 2006 timeframe. And what drove me crazy is they had no cable routing at all. Like there was no way to route cables behind them. So we would actually take all the power supply cables and kind of, if they were sleeved, we would separate them and flatten them out and then mount them in that 1.5 millimeters between the motherboard and the motherboard tray where the little standoffs were there. And you'd flatten them out and just hope you wouldn't screw through it. And that was our cable routing, right? And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if you cut some big holes in this motherboard tray and you could route the cables from behind there? And so we did that design. And then this design, when we were doing it, the thermal engineer guy at the time, Martin, had this idea. You see this side fan on the case here over the hard drive cage. That fan goes across the hard drive cage and goes down into behind the motherboard. So all the hot air from your hard drives would go behind your motherboard. And his concern was, well, we don't want that hot air coming back into the main chamber of the case. So I got some rubber grommets for the cable routing holes. So if you're not using them, it'll keep the air back there. So it was actually a thermal engineer who came up with the idea. So
that's so cool.
It's a super, and it was nice because it made it look cleaner too, which is great. But anyway, that's the history of 800D nonsense.
Yeah, and so for the giveaways, it looks like our mods were picking the best questions or the questions they thought were the best. Dragon Plays, congratulations! So you've won a prize. The mods will contact you and let you know what your prize was. But congrats, that was great.
All right. So one last question. Thank you guys for being here, Dmitry and both Kevins. I appreciate that. I want to ask the chat. Feel free to comment on the video or comment in the chat. Let us know what you guys want us to see us cover in the future. If you guys want us to talk about new products, if you guys want to talk about, potential stuff, if you guys want to talk about game stuff specifically, give us some feedback on that. Let us know if you like the format, if you like having guest stars like Dmitry and the Kevins here, what you guys want to see. Who do you want to talk to? Do you want to talk to the guy in charge of keyboards, mice? Let us know who you want to talk to. We'll bring something in. We'll have this chat set up. We're planning to have one of these every month going on for the rest of, time. So hopefully you guys will come back and watch this regularly. We appreciate you guys watching. Thank you very much. Bye for me. Thank you guys. Dmitry, do you want to plug your channel?
Yeah, just check out Hardware Canucks on YouTube, and I'll see you there, good people.
And Kevin W.
Well, thanks for having me. Dmitry, thanks a lot. It was great to chat with you guys. And obviously go to CORSAIR.com for everything, but you can also go to OriginPC.com for custom-built, pre-built systems.
And Kevin G.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Dmitry and Kevin for coming to the show. It's been awesome chatting to you guys and kind of going over the history of PC builds and gaming. So thanks. And to the chat, I guess we'll see you next month.
We have an incredibly busy next couple of months with new product launches. So February, March, April, we're going to have tons of new stuff to talk about. So tune in and we will share all that information with you. And you can ask us questions about why we made the decisions we made or thank us for the great decisions we made. Bye for me. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.